Hi all and welcome back to a new video. After the Ferry House Festival unfortunately ended on a pretty damp note today with a completely abandoned day, we move on to Wednesday's card, which is the Student Raceday at Leopardstown. It's always a fantastic day out, good an occasion for the students, and I'll be there personally, so hopefully it'll be a good day. I think it's been a dry day in Dublin here today, so it should be fine ground wise, and we should get ahead. We should go ahead with racing, despite there being quite heavy ground in most likely in the going description. So it's a 7 race card. It's a difficult enough one. A few early season maidens, a few handicaps, and then just the one listed race. So it's not the greatest flat card you'll ever see, but as it's Student Race Day, you kind of come to expect that. And we start off at 3:30 with the opening maiden, which is a mile 2 maiden for colts, I think. Colts and Geldings, yep. And it is top the market here is Gardens of Babylon. Aidan O'Brien runs 3 here. And Gardens of Babylon is at 5-4. But in fact, I'm going to take him on by his stablemate Giuseppe Garibaldi here at 11-8. They're quite well matched on form. So nobody's quite sure, I suppose, that Gardens of Babylon ran on very well to be third in a maiden, in a back end maiden at Leopardstown last year, and Giuseppe Garibaldi ran on very takingly for second in the Group 3, I think? Yeah, the Group 3 Airfield Stakes over 1 mile 1 at Leopardstown as well, in the back of the previous season on the flat. So I'm taking it that Giuseppe Garibaldi probably has a little bit more kind of actual form in the book rather than Gardens of Babylon. Both of them are complete unknowns ground-wise, as is the usual with Aidan O'Brien horses. They're not really bred to be going on this sort of ground, but one of them will hopefully step up, or one of them will step up, I reckon, and I'm going to side with Giuseppe Garibaldi. As my each way alternative here, even, because it's 8 runners, so you'll get 3 places, is Alfa Romero for Jim Bulger at 12-1. Jim Bulger hasn't hit the board yet this season, but he's been knocking on the door, and perhaps this horse could run a nice enough race on debut. A son of See the Stars. He's bred for these sort of distances, and could outrun the 12-1 odds, considering you get the 3 places. And we move on to the 4 o'clock, which is a mile 2, another mile 2 fillies maiden this time out. Again, 2 interesting O'Brien, or 3 O'Brien horses here, but I'm going to side with Forever Together, who has come 4th and 3rd in her first 2 starts. She is the 6-4 favourite, but there just doesn't seem to be that much to take her on in this race. Broadway is interesting at 9-2 for O'Brien. You've got Lure of the Sea, a newcomer for Dermot Weld, which is very hard to kind of weigh up, and Active Approach for Jim Bulger, who just looks a little exposed, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think the perhaps the each way play, if you want one, is Queen Iseult here at 13-2. Again, you've got your 3. You've got 9 horses in the race, so you get your 3 places. And Queen Iseult could run a nice enough race. Fairly disappointing in her 2 runs last year, yeah, but sure to come on as a 3-year-old. Move on to a very, very difficult looking handicap mile. Again, another mile 2. And Song of the Sky here looks to be interesting for Joseph O'Brien. He was a newcomer to O'Brien's yard when finishing mid-div at Dundalk. He finished 8th that day, but it showed promise and looked like there could be more to come from him. And I think even though he's the favourite, at 9-2 you're looking at a nice enough price, so he could be worth a go, and he'd be my winning bet here. I think each way wise, it's very difficult. There's a few very unknown ones. As much as his form figures would indicate no confidence on the flat, I think Misty Millie here at 10-1 for Garvin Donnelly. I think if you look past the fact his last 5 flat runs have zeros beside them, which is not ideal, he's fit from hurdling and he loves the ground, and the ground is key here. And the fact he's been running over hurdles means he's a guaranteed stayer here at a mile 2, and perhaps could outrun again those 10-1 odds. I'm not going to spend much time on the 5 o'clock here. Mile 6 kind of conditions race. Jur's Girl. I'm a big fan of Jur's Girl. Obviously, I was winding her up for the Mare's Hurdle at Cheltenham. She didn't run very well. She should win here, to be honest. There's really no excuses at 4-11. It's really more of a watching brief. Well, not even a watching brief. It's just a one to watch. But Jur's Girl at 4-11. Surely she wins. only 3 runners against her. None of them seem to be up to too much, so I'll just leave it at that. We then go to the mile listed race, the Heritage Stakes, of which I think Brendan Bracken here at 15 to 8 isn't bad value. A good consistent horse at this level, and that's the key with him. It's when he's been tried at a higher level, he does get found out, but down at listed in Group 3 level, he's a remarkably admirable sort. He goes on the ground, and there's a lot to like about your Lion's Charge here. I think Pincheck at 10 to 1 is not a bad each way price. He was ahead of One Night I Dreamed in the Lincolnshire. Now, One Night I Dreamed has a little bit of a pull in the weights, but I don't think it's enough to guarantee that One Night I Dreamed will finish ahead of Pincheck, and therefore at 10 to 1 you could it could be an okay price for an each way play. Move on to the concluding 2 races, which are 2 handicaps, 2 very difficult handicaps. 7 furlong, 1 to start off, of which I think Bronze Age 5 to 1 here could be a decent proposition for Ken Condon, Shane Foley in the saddle. He's a handicap debutant, but I think again you have to think on this ground you need to be able to go on the ground, and that's something we know is guaranteed with Bronze Age. He's still a maiden, I believe. Yes, he's still a maiden, but he does like this ground. He does go on it. 7 furlongs is sure to suit, and he could run very well at 5 to 1. I think the other one here is an interesting horse for No Mead, Art of America, 15 to 2. His 3 runs have really been very uninspiring, but he's been gelded since, and again, he's a handicap debutant, so you'd think he might just be a little bit ahead of the handicapper, having flown low in a few maidens. And No Mead's yard in absolute terrific form. Obviously had a treble across the card on Sunday at Ferryhouse and Cork. And we conclude with another 7 furlong handicap. Again, looks very difficult. I think Tribal Path here on stable debut for Willie McCreary is the one to be at, with Nathan Cross taking off 7 at 9 to 2. Was a course and distance winner on this ground as well. He likes this ground for Damien English, I think. He's had the change of stable, and I think he could go very well. The top weight, Nothing to Lose at 6 to 1. Robbie Downey takes off 3, which will be important. He was favoured for a race at the Galway Festival, so he's obviously fairly highly regarded. Didn't run very well that day, but hasn't been seen since, and hopefully will run a nice enough race on Seasonal Bow. And that's all for Student Race Day. As I said before, it should be a great day. Hopefully the weather holds up and we can have a good day's racing. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel down below and tell me who you're tipping on to. Best of luck.